Do you remember when this photo leaked? It was by Brian Jones, the guitar tech of Dave Mustaine, around late 2022, and we've all just kind of been waiting for this thing. And hey, now we've got our update. They must be on their way, as Dave Mustaine just recently posted these to his Instagram page. So not only do we have the ebony one that we've already been expecting, we've also seen him toy around with this gold top finish one, but we've got two additional newcomers here. A vintage sunburst looking very bulbous, with a very nice flame top. Then kind of a Chad Kroeger Blackwater-esque trans ebony finish one right here. Which one is your guys' favorite? In my opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of the gold top or the ebony. I think the vintage sunburst looks a little bit weird with the current specs that we've got on it, but the whole blacked out hardware works incredibly well with this hue right here. Now, unfortunately, I've tried many of Dave Mustaine's spec guitars, and they're just not for me as far as the neck profile goes, but there's something else to be excited for about these that I'll definitely have to give it another try for. A, it's a Les Paul now, but B, it's still a 24 fret guitar, and I would be real curious if these end up being long scale 25.5 inches as well. But here's where speculation comes in. How much longer do we have? Are we actually going to have a run that has 4 different colors, or are these just prototypes and now Dave has to pick which one he wants to bring to production? Perhaps this was a soft tease in order to figure out what people like. Or is this photo AI generated? Whoa. So look at these inlays, all good. But then look over here. Does that not look much thicker in this area? Is this a Dave Mustaine April Fool's? Why is the inlay so much smaller there? Because these seem about right. They must be toying around with the inlay design. But then look over here on the gold one. That's why I said AI generated. It looks offset and staggered, not only in one location, but multiple. So is one small like over here and then one big like over there? Has anybody else noticed this, or am I the first? It could also just be something weird with the uploading, because where did our strings go? Why did they just disappear in the center of the fretboard? That's blowing my mind right there. That has to be photo manipulation. But you know what? Maybe that's why I like this one better, because of the smaller profile that the inlays have. Because in my opinion, they just look too close to the Dean logo. So making them thinner and more shapely in the contour, I think looks pretty cool. But it also has this interesting sound wave design. Like, look at the negatives, the black space rather than the white. I'm glad I made this episode. I'm seeing all kinds of new things here. But speaking of new things, there was also this photo posted. Let's start in the back. This looks like one of those older style Flying V's. He was probably gifted it a while ago. I think that's what, the 2019-ish style. So that's nothing to be excited about for being new. We've got his Silver USA as well as his limited edition green Rust in Peace one. Sadly, I didn't get to document that. I really like the cool green inlays that they've got going on with that. But then our next ones look like a custom shop red burst, and then we've got a black. Those are just the regular ones that we had already seen. However, coming over to this middle one, are we going to see another release? From this particular photo, I'll mess with it a little bit for you while you're watching. It looks like it might be a dark gold. That would actually be pretty cool. But these next ones are very interesting. So this is an Explorer, but it's got all of his usual elements on it. Will we see the Dave Mustaine Explorer? I think we've seen that teased before, but we're probably going to get the Les Paul first. But I really feel his appointments, and we were just talking a couple of days ago how we need more signature Explorers. I would be excited for that, because then we might see more signature Explorers, and those just naturally work with 24 fret guitars. But then this sunburst is more of a perimeter shape, which is different from what we had just saw, so that has to be another different prototype for this next one coming. And that nearly looked like we might have had a locking nut on it, but no, that's just some sort of a string mute. Looks like they all have something similar to that if you look really closely. So hey, if you're a big Megadeth fan or just a fan of signature guitars in general, looks like we might be getting them soon, in one form or the other. I want to dedicate the rest of tonight's episode to 24 fret guitars, but before we do that, we need to have a word from our sponsor, Sweetwater. Sweetwater is a great place to buy all your new gear, and that's from electric guitars to pianos, orchestral instruments. My favorite thing is the fact that you can pick out the instrument that you want, from your weight down to the serial number to the kind of top. When I'm looking for something special, I always go to Sweetwater, and they're going to hook you up with a sales engineer that's going to not only help you with this sale, but many of other sales down the road as well. I think I've been with mine for nearly 15 years now. So thank you, Sweetwater, for being a long-term sponsor of my show. So now we need to talk about this one. It popped up on Reverb for $12,000 about a week ago. My friends, this is a custom shop 24 fret Les Paul custom. Wow. That is bizarre looking. That's the problem when you do 24 fret a Les Paul. You have to squish the pickups together. But if you come back over to the Mustaines, they don't seem as squished, and I think that comes down to the 25.5-inch scale. Because in comparison, this thing just looks so bizarre. But if you look closely at your pickups, they actually have the engraving here. So this is early 2000s. This style started, I believe, 1997. It only lasted a few years. But Diablo actually did post a video of this where I assume he purchased it at a guitar show, because this was actually for sale by Southside Guitars. They were talking to me about it. It was a very interesting early 2000s, and even Parker reached out to me about this one to let me know about it coming up, which I certainly appreciated. So yeah, we could talk about it on the show. It's quite strange looking, but that's what the late 90s, early 2000s was all about. However, to call it a complete one-off is actually incorrect. We documented one of these on the show in wiring format. Surprisingly, only 8 months ago. Someone had posted this to a Facebook group saying, "Does anybody know where my black Les Paul custom is?" And usually that's like, yeah, man, that's gonna be hard. But no, this one's 24 frets. It looks like it has the dirty fingers in the bridge. That's gonna be pretty easy to tell. But what's cool about this is it doesn't have any inlays at all. Because that's the one thing that kind of turns me off on this one, is they really should have just added that additional inlay right there. But it's kind of like Super 400 in style. I'm sure you would get used to that. But what's really cool about this custom is a super awesome flame top. The ebony one's classy in its own way, but this has a lot of nice figuring to it. Another very interesting guitar that was birthed during this time period was the one that we called the Santana prototype when we had documented it. That was about a year ago. I later updated the title to a Santana signed Gibson prototype because we were able to confirm that it was not for Carlos. This one falls in that same category of, this is one of those really weird guitars where you have to have a certain collector mindset to want it. This one's got the opposite problem. It's got a really, really long spacing. But if I remember correctly, it was like 25.5 inches. You'd have to check out the full review and demo. Because you got all the super fancy inlays as well as the purfling along the binding. And yeah, sure enough, the giant headstock with flip-out winding tuners is evidenced here. And that's what's interesting to me. The late 90s, early 2000s is such uncharted territory. We keep pulling up weird stuff as people start to think, oh, you know what, I bet people might appreciate these now. Because you gotta remember, that was the infancy of the custom shop. Like, it took them a decade to be like, okay, here's what we're doing. Now let's see what else we can do with this. But if you're interested in this one, it's available at Diablo Guitars. You can check them out on their website or on Reverb. Make them an offer on it. But that serial number dates it to 2003. So now we know of at least two of them. Cherry Sunburst Black. By the way, I think this guy's still looking for his Les Paul, so if anybody sees it, feel free to let me know. Maybe we can reunite them. But I wonder what other colors might exist. And to end out our episode tonight, I want to talk about a new color that I forgot to mention in the other episode. Because when you come to Gibson's new arrivals section, it shows you the double trebles, as well as the new dark purple burst Victory, as well as the TV yellow satin. But as you continue to scroll down here, you start to get into other things, which I think is a website error, because you remember the vintage tobacco Sunburst Les Paul Jr., tried and true classic. You can get it in left-handed and right-handed. Really? They couldn't take another photo for the lefties? That's funny. But it was a couple of years ago they dropped Ebony. This is new, my friends. It's not labeled as new, but it is, in case you didn't know. We now have TV yellow on a Les Paul Jr., which if somebody wants to New Guitar Day one of these, I am 100% down. Or you can visit the sponsor of tonight's episode. I'm sure they can whip you up one. In fact, I'm curious, what do these look like? Good, they do have them. You can see that price difference. Custom shop $4,000, Gibson USA, that's going to make people happy. And oh wow, those were popular, but they've got some demo units here. Well, hey, for Gibson USA TV yellow, that doesn't seem too bad. It's got some good wood grain. It wasn't like too heavily coated. Is it the same as custom shop? Definitely not. But as we just demonstrated, way more affordable. And hey, cool wood grain on the back too. Looks like maybe a center seam. Kind of hard to tell. But here's a look at a custom shop one. Hate to say it, but I think the Gibson USA almost looks better. Well, until you get to the back anyway. I like the ringy wood grain of that one. But all right, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed, learned something new, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. It's okay to click off the video now.